How's it going, everybody? This is Ryan Doze here as your host today for Across the Bifrost, where we explore the world of Marvel's mighty Thor. Today is all about Loki, everybody. We are going to talk some Loki comics during our first book club. We're going to look back at Loki, Agent of Asgard, a series that came out quite a few years ago. And we're going to do that with a special guest. Dan the Articulator is back to talk comics with us. And then we're going to break down episode 3 of Loki, the latest episode of the Disney Plus series. Really excited for this low-key episode of Across the Bifrost today. As always, if you want to support the show, a great way you can do that is going to iTunes, rating us 5 stars, giving us an awesome review, and then don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss a single episode of Across the Bifrost, whether it's our Monday episodes or our Thursday Throwback Thursday episodes. Well, without further ado, we're going to jump into our Loki episode with our book club, our first ever book club with Dan the Articulator talking about Loki, Agent of Asgard. How's it going, listener? We are here for the first Across the Bifrost book club. So excited that you are listening to this breakdown today. I brought a guest back to talk about Loki, Agent of Asgard, our first book club. We brought Dan the Articulator back. How's it going, Dan?
Not bad, Ryan. How about you?
Doing good, man. I'm really excited to break down some Loki today. We're going to do a deep dive into one of his first solo titles. I'm excited.
Yeah, this was actually something I completely missed when it was on shelves, and it was nice to be able to dive back in and kind of, see how Loki does on his own. It's actually a good read. So
yeah. So listeners, you may be wondering, why are we doing Loki, Agent of Asgard? 2 main reasons. We threw it out there on social media and asked you all what you wanted us to break down for our first book, and this won the vote. We'll be doing the first 5 issues of this series, and also the Disney Plus show right now. The Disney Plus show is completely blowing up. At the time of this recording, we just saw the 3rd episode, so we're halfway through that. I think it's just a timely book to read, to look back on a book that came out, about 8 years ago, and deep dive into a character with some related stories. There's a lot of interesting themes that we get to see in this book that actually show up in the show. And Dan and I'll be sure to break that down over the next few minutes. I want to read the summary for you all so we can just get a sense of where the story starts. And then when I'm done reading the summary, Dan is going to break down what else was happening in Marvel at the time that this was being written. So the summary goes like this. Kid Loki is all grown up, and the god of mischief is stronger, smarter, sexier, and just plain sneakier than ever before. As Asgardia's one-man secret service, he's ready to lie, cheat, steal, bluff, and snog his way through the twistiest, turniest, and most treacherous missions the All-Mother can throw at him. Starting with a heart-stopping heist on Avengers Tower. And that's just the beginning, as Loki takes on Lorelei in Monte Carlo's casinos and heads back to the dawn of Asgard to join its greatest heroes on a quest for a certain magical sword. But when he puts together a crew to crack the deepest dungeons of Asgardia itself, there may be one plot twist too many for even Loki to handle. There's a lot packed in there. We will dig into it, but Dan is going to tell us what else was happening in Marvel at the time of this comic.
Yeah, so takes place, this is 2014. The biggest event that happened before that was Infinity. And this is kind of like the beginning of the Marvel Now stage, where there was kind of a revamp where they were doing, new status quo. Loki had just, this is our kind of first look at kid Loki now grown up, um, and what he's doing in his new body after being reincarnated. Um, there's mention of Asgardia, which
Yeah.
is actually, there was a period where Asgard, as we knew it, fell, and good old Tony Stark offered to rebuild it with some new technology, and kind of modernized it. Kind of, if you want to picture like a Wakanda version of Asgard,
Okay.
and they called it Asgardia, and it was
Okay.
ruled by the All Mothers, and not Odin, uh, hence the Asgardia,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
he had imposed some self exile on him. If you want more on that, I would probably. I'm sure we'll read God of Thunder eventually, but
Oh my gosh, yes.
but pretty much it stands in the same spot it did, in Oklahoma, and it's Asgard under new management. So
Okay.
and we'll kind of get to see that with the All Mothers, as they're called.
We will definitely get to see that.
Yeah.
What happened after this event? Or what happened after these issues?
It actually looks like it leads right into Axis, which was, it was a fun event where the good guys became bad and bad guys became good for a little bit, and it was. I remember reading that when it was on the shelves, and I don't remember exactly how that happened, but it was a fun read. And then after that, it was a bigger event, which was Original Sin.
Yeah.
Which was the death of Uatu, the Watcher, I believe.
Who murdered Uatu the Watcher?
Yeah, and spoilers, it was Nick Fury.
Yeah. So what I'm getting from that is that this series is kind of nestled in between these major events, and Loki is both dealing with the fallout of a major Infinity event, and he's leading up to two other major events. So it stands to reason maybe this might have been overlooked at the time, but when Loki gets his own TV show and Loki becomes a hit in the MCU, it's kind of hard to ignore these solo titles that he gets. So thanks for that breakdown, Dan. We are going to look into the release dates and the author and the artist just real quick, and then we will get into the issues for this series of comics. So these issues started coming out in February of 2014, and they were released monthly, as most comics are. And for you Marvel Cinematic Universe fans, in terms of Thor related titles, this series falls right in between Thor the Dark World and Age of Ultron. So this would have come out after the second Thor movie and right before the second Avengers movie. This entire series is written by a phenomenal author named Al Ewing. Dan, are you familiar with Al Ewing outside of this series?
I am actually not. I do wonder if I've read anything else by him, but this was kind of my first foray into his writing. And if this is any indication of it, I'm willing to kind of research, because I feel like this was actually pretty well written and kind of fun. So
Yeah, so I'm just gonna, so to kind of to give you a little bit of a taste of the rest of the things he's written, his credits are incredible. So around the time of the writing of these Loki comics, he was writing the New Avengers, Captain America and the Mighty Avengers. He had done a really long run on Iron Man, and he was a part of writing the original Sin story. So he had his hands in a lot of different things. And then since Agent of Asgard came out, he was in my opinion, he was the genius behind the Immortal Hulk revamping of the Bruce Banner Hulk character. Immortal Hulk is, I know this is a Thor podcast, but Immortal Hulk is a fantastic series.
I have been wanting to read that for some time. So it's good to know that he's behind that. I know that Mark Waid had something to do with it too.
Yes. They kind of, I think they both took turns on that book as well.
Gotcha.
I know Al Ewing also had a hand in the King in Black arc that just wrapped up this year, which centers around Venom and the symbiotes. Al Ewing also wrote on Gamma Flight, the Guardians of the Galaxy, Sword, the Empire crossover event, and he also took a hand at the Jane Foster Valkyrie comic that is, I believe, still going. So Al Ewing, definitely not a slouch in the writer's spot. In the artist role, we have Lee Garbett, who I could not find a lot of bibliography about because mostly before he did this run of Loki, he had done work for DC doing Batman related titles. So we have a guy who cut his teeth doing Batman, writing Loki, and Agent of Asgard was really Lee Garbett's only main contribution for Marvel. So that's our main creative team for that for these books that we are going to be looking at today. But I'll be honest, Dan, I'm ready to get into issue number 1 of Loki, Agent of Asgard. Here's how we are going to do this, listener. I will give you a brief overview of issue 1. Dan will do issue 2. I'll do 3, he'll do 4, 5, and then we'll give you our final thoughts at the end. So, hope you enjoy this breakdown of Loki, Agent of Asgard. Issue number 1. We start off with this really kind of breathtaking splash page. We see Loki stabbing Thor through the back, and this brilliant, bright sword is coming out of Thor's chest. And Loki just says on the first page, "Trust me, I know what I'm doing."
I didn't love that. I'll say I didn't love the way that started.
It's super jarring, right?
Yeah, I was already upset.
Yeah. So we get a few pages of credits, and then we one thing I love about Marvel at this point is they give you synopsises at the beginning of the books to kind of bring you up to speed if maybe you haven't been reading the recent issues. They at least give you kind of a clue of what's going on. In the first bit of the book, we see Loki singing in the shower. That was okay. Loki just singing in the shower, and then the All Mothers they interrupt him and they give him a mission, and we find out that mission is to get into the Avengers Tower. Now, like, as no matter what kind of Marvel fan you are, the Avengers Tower is like sacred ground. You don't try to steal or break into Avengers Tower because there's a chance that Avengers are going to be there and they're gonna mop the floor with you. Loki he runs up the side of Avengers Tower, and he cloaks himself, and he sees all what the Avengers are doing in the tower, and then Thor is onto him because Thor always knows where Loki is. He throws the hammer out the window, and Loki plummets, and you get this cool little panel of Hawkeye and Black Widow just playing video games and reading a book, and then Loki is falling by the window. Hawkeye saves him, and then they kind of almost reenact that Avengers scene from the movie where they're all around him and they're surrounding him and they're wanting to know why he's here. The thing that makes this depiction of the Avengers a little different is Thor is super aggressive. He is super upset, very, very angsty, and I think even Loki knows this is not the Thor he's used to. Hawkeye is kind of done with Loki's tricks, so he threatens to shoot an arrow at him. He misses Loki, and he hits Bruce Banner instead. So the Hulk comes out, he starts fighting all the Avengers, and meanwhile Loki slips out, and he goes looking for information in the Avengers computer system. The Avengers catch up to him, and we see a very, very brief combat scene between Loki and Thor. Thor is, for some reason, he's unable to carry the hammer, and Loki makes short work of him. We see in this fight the splash page from the beginning where Loki is stabbing Thor through with this glowing sword that we learn a lot more about later on in these issues. And as Thor is being stabbed, this black kind of mist is like coming out from him, and we get a little bit of a context page where we find out that Thor has just been kind of a jerk for the last little bit. He's been super aggressive, and he's fighting his friends, and he's shouting at the All Mothers, and that's why Loki has been sent to go into Avengers Tower. The sword, we find out, is releasing this curse, this dark curse, out of Thor. The curse is what is making Thor so overly aggressive and violent. And Loki traps the curse in a jar. We see we see the Hulk finally get the best of Loki. We just see a fist moving towards Loki's face, and then it cuts scene. So we can assume he got his clock cleaned. And then we see a little scene between Thor and Loki where Thor's appreciative of what Loki did, and they say that they owe each other favors, and that will surely come up in the rest of our book club reading. Then we cut to Loki in front of the All Mothers again. He shows them the curse that he is trapped in the jar, and he's concerned with what they're going to do with it. But the All Mothers say, hey, we've got it covered. We'll handle it from here. And then on the last page, we see an old familiar face show up. It's old villainous classic Loki shows up on the last page. So we've got young Loki and old Loki jumping around in this issue. And the last little bit of text of this issue says, next, Loki goes speed dating. And that concludes the first issue. Like, it was so much. Dan, what were some of your favorite, moments and parts of this the whirlwind issue of Agent of Asgard?
I mean, first of all, there's a splash page in here that is just like a recreation of the cover of Avengers 1.
Yes.
And I love that. I love seeing like old art redone for, newer comics and all that. So in terms of art, that stuck out a lot, and I like seeing that. But of course, it's something Loki does best, and we see that in Avengers 1, is turning teams against each other, and he does that so easily with the Avengers here. Like, we see him just bring up, something I've mentioned in past, Civil War, what Tony Stark wound up doing to Thor and cloning him, and that was definitely, you could tell, still a sore spot for Thor, and that's all he needed to say, and it set Thor off, and everybody went off the rails. So I liked the nod to that, because felt like it spoke to me. And also, I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to describe the new look for Loki we've seen since this 2014, and the description of the One Direction-y Loki.
Yeah.
That's how I will always, now and forever, refer to this Loki. There's old Loki, there's kid Loki, and there's One Directional Loki. One Direction Loki. So, yeah. So I was hooked after this first issue. I always like seeing the Avengers. It's not always great to see them fighting each other, but it's fun seeing them, dip into other comics. And then I was super excited to see old Loki, because that is, when I think of Loki in my mind, that's what I think of. So I knew that this was going to go somewhere I liked after just that last page. Good first issue.
You alluded to the Civil War reference. As I'm reading this through, I'm like, oh, that's the Dan reference for the issue. I was like, oh my gosh, it's almost like they know that we're going to break this down in like 8 years. But I will say this. I loved the hook of this issue. This issue felt like if you were going to start off a brand new series that centers around Loki, this was the way to do it. And you get the Avengers, you get old Loki, you get these cool fight scenes. And I think that if you're a new fan, and like I said, this issue falls between Thor: The Dark World and Age of Ultron. If you're trying to get new fans hooked into a Thor related title, this was the way to go about doing it. I think this issue was It hit on all the levels and notes that it needed to, and I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you want to just run us through issue number 2, where Loki goes speed dating, Dan?
Yeah. So first of all, the cover is young Loki sitting there with a rose in front of his face. Uh, like very classic speed dating setting. We see a first person view of somebody speaking to, a bunch of guys kind of going through the line. We see a Roxxon employee in there. Whoever's view we're seeing at this point is, very choosy and seems to have a good head on their shoulders. And then, we get to see Loki, and we get our first glimpse at, which we don't know yet, but is Verity Willis, which it's kind of somebody we'll get to know a little bit more over the next few issues. And we kind of get the, first hint at what his mission is in this one, which is he's trying to track down Lorelei, which Lorelei apparently is the younger sister of the Amor the Enchantress.
Yes.
Not, Lorelei is not somebody I know a ton about, but again, you're learn. And so we go through and, they kind of have a back and forth. Verity is pretty, sarcastic and kind of going back. She's able to match Loki in terms of, speaking back and forth. And it's kind of assumed at this point that who we're speaking to is Lorelei. And even the next page, we see Asgard's Lorelei, and looks very much like Verity Willis. We learned that Lorelei has a romantic history with both Loki and Thor. Enemy of Asgard. She's a lot like her sister in that, she's a bad guy. Then we kind of cut to Loki back in his apartment. Something I love about this, by the way, is how the All Mothers appear to Loki in all of these different forms.
Right.
And this one, they appear to him in a bowl of Jello. You see heads floating. They're speaking to him, kind of giving the mission, the breakdown of all that, and
so good.
Yeah, it's pretty clever. And as we're going through, we kind of see, we get the mission. Bring back Lorelei to Asgard for a reason. They're pretty cryptic about their reasonings and everything they're giving to Loki throughout this. They don't really give a lot of reasoning. It's just he's an agent and he's not to ask questions, I guess. So we're going through again, and we're now in a casino. Seems to be some kind of heist going down, and then we get another look at what we're now confirming to be the actual Lorelei, who's taking part in this heist in a casino in France, Paris specifically. And yeah, as we're kind of going through the motions of them going through this heist, we're kind of flipping back and forth between Loki and Verity, and he's putting a lot of things together and kind of getting a history of her and what exactly, a little learning about her as you do in this speed dating environment.
So yeah, what we see is this back and forth between Loki and the heist that's happening in Monte Carlo. We see that Loki is actually outsmarting Lorelei's squad as they're robbing the casino. This invisibility amulet that he gives the one of the robbers is just a fake made in Taiwan. I thought that was awesome. And then we jump back to Verity in the speed dating, and they have this final culmination of their conversation. And what you find out is that Lorelei is actually at the speed dating event that Loki and Verity are talking at. So Loki is at the speed dating event for that purpose, to meet up with Lorelei and to try and get her to join a crew that he's putting together for a mission that is all about him. You find out that Lorelei and Loki walk out together, But Verity is not done. Verity follows behind them kind of secretively. Lorelai and Loki talk about putting together a heist together. And as we leave the issue 2, we get a really cool tease for the next issue. The next issue's tease is, if you meet a giant otter on the road, kill him. That's like out of context. It just sounds like pure insanity. But Dan, what were some of your favorite points, moments, panels in this issue 2? This very James Bond-esque issue 2 of Agent of Asgard.
I really liked the kind of 360 that they, well, not 360, but the 180 that they did on us, with kind of leading us to think that Lorelai was Verity, and then things kind of become clear. It was just, I was almost certain, like, you see one page, you see Lorelai, the next page, you see Verity. It's like, oh, that's obvious. But, turns out she just is somebody who cannot be told lies, and just so happens to be somebody who'd be working really well towards Loki's missions. So, these normal human characters that we get amongst these, these literal gods, is when they throw those, in the mix and stuff like that. They've done that in other Thor stories. It's always fun to see, how they hold their own and go toe to toe with whatever's going on in that, specific setting. So that was fun to see, just get an introduction to Verity, and, just, new characters are always fun.
Yeah. So we get this sense that these characters are definitely coming back, that Loki is putting together something because there's the mission that he's been given from the All-Mothers, but then there's his own personal mission. And we're starting to kind of ask the question of, like, what is Loki up to behind the scenes? What is he trying to put together? Issue 2, very heavy in like the spy espionage theme. Issue 3 of Agent of Asgard is nothing like that.
No,
Issue 3 is so insane.
I almost thought that I was started to read a different comic at some point. It was so different. It was it was cool to see a Norse fairy tale in a Marvel comic. Like, we get that every once in a while, but it starts off and it just immediately feels like a fairy tale, folk story.
Absolutely. We're going to jump into issue 3 then. We start off issue 3 not with young Loki, but with old Loki, the villainous version of him that we saw at the end of issue 1. Loki is going back in time to rewrite some things. The title of this issue is actually a very cool, intriguing title. It's Your Life is a Story That I've Already Written. And it alludes to old Loki's, I'm going to say, his scheme against young Loki during the arc that we get in these first 5 issues. But we'll come back to that later. We see old Loki in the first few pages talking with a young Odin, not king. He's not the All-Father yet. He's just a prince of Asgard. They're walking around, and Loki is kind of charming him, and he's using his skills of persuasion to eventually get Odin to do him a favor. Along the way, we get some really interesting, I will say that, with some crazy panels where Loki kills a giant otter, for almost no reason, and he takes the pelt, and then later on, Loki and Odin go to this bar, this tavern, where they find out that a father and a son are at this tavern, and they're mourning the loss of their other brother and son who hasn't come back yet. We find out the other son's name is Otir, which, if you're, it doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to figure out that Otir is a shape-shifting person who turns into a giant otter. So we find out that Loki and Odin killed this father's son and this brother's other brother. And we see vengeance sworn, and Loki is kind of playing both sides of this. He's getting Odin in trouble, and the father says that, we're not going to kill you if you come back with essentially a lot of gold. So Loki finds out that there's this dwarven treasure hoard nearby, and he goes and he's going to get gold from this treasure pile, a stockpile. And Dan, you and I talked about this beforehand. It is the most insane panels in this entire 5-issue arc we're reading. Loki goes to this golden treasure hoard, and he is confronted by this giant fish guarding the pile of gold. And what does he do? He whips out a bazooka and blows the thing to smithereens. Again, listener, this was written by adults. This is written by paid professionals who, in my opinion, are geniuses, because Loki brings a future weapon back into the past. He blows this fish up with a giant bazooka.
Very specifically, an M20 recoilless rocket launcher. That was my favorite part about this. Is I think they actually gave the classification of the weapon.
Oh my gosh!
And in a text bubble that is like, written on like an old scroll. It was just
for all you bazooka nerds out there.
Yeah.
And then we will come back to a few just the funny things these panels contain. But then we get kind of an overview of this, is that the gold is cursed. The gold is cursed because it was stolen from its rightful person. And then these two sons, the son of the man in the tavern, these two sons that remain, they begin to quarrel over the gold, and one of the sons runs away with it. The other swears vengeance, and due to his vengeance, he makes a sword and imbues it with this power that is related to the gold that they found. The son that steals the gold slowly turns into this monster. The gold perverts him and changes him into this dragon-looking monster. We are then introduced to a new character named Sigurd. Sigurd the Ever-Glorious. He is the first hero of Asgard. He shows up to this tavern later on, and the older son that had made the sword to enact vengeance on his brother says, use this sword to slay my brother and get vengeance. Sigurd uses the sword, slays the dragon, and then goes back the next day and turns on the older brother who gave him the sword. He turns on him, and you find out that the sword, which we know as Graham is the name of the sword, its blade forces people to tell the truth or be exposed to the truth. And the truth that the older brother experiences is that he didn't really want revenge. He was just a murderer that wanted to murder his brother. So it's a little bit of a downer for him. Sigurd slays the older brother, and all the while there's this raven flying around who we find out is Loki in the form of a raven, kind of playing strings behind the scenes. In the last few pages of this issue, there's a lot going on here. We find out that Odin's father dies. Odin's father, Bor, dies, and the sword which Sigurd had used to slay the dragon is now in the possession of Odin. And Loki makes a deal with Odin to make a box and lock the sword inside the box for later nefarious things. And then we jump to the current day, where a mysterious figure is climbing a mountain. He goes into a cave and opens a box, and there's nothing in it. There's no sword. And the man is revealed to be none other than Sigurd, the first hero of Asgard. So Issue 3 is kind of a whirlwind fantasy adventure. Dan and I are going to talk about our favorite quotes and our favorite panels because this issue was full of them. Dan, what were some of your favorite moments from issue 3 of this series?
I mean, I thought it was going to be the giant otter being, murdered, but I actually that bazooka moment.
Oh my gosh.
Loki just pulls out a bazooka. There's not really much.
No context.
I mean, like, he just brought a bazooka with him. He just has a bazooka. I'd never seen Loki with a bazooka. I'm okay with Loki with a bazooka.
Yes, I'm very pro Loki with a bazooka.
So, and my favorite, probably, if we continue reading this, I don't think that this moment will be topped. After Loki comes back with the gold, somebody asks, "But where did you get such a gold hoard, old one?" And he just says very simply, "I shot a fish with a bazooka." And
this is my favorite panel in the whole book.
It's probably my favorite panel I've read like all year of anything.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, does it get better than that? I mean, Loki with a bazooka. That's all.
So we find out that there's another character lurking around in this story, Sigurd, who we learn a lot more about in issue 4, which Dan is going to break down for us. So Dan, hit us with issue 4 of Agent of Asgard, a issue that had a legitimate surprise in here that made me so happy.
Yeah, so we pick up and we are introduced to, well, I was introduced to a character that I didn't know about before, Kalu, who apparently dates back to his first appearance back in the 60s. I read a little about him. He turns out he trained the Ancient One, which was the guy who trained Doctor Strange, and he was even like a member of the Mighty Avengers back in the 70s. So I feel like this is the first time we've seen him in Marvel Comics in a long time. He's not, I wouldn't call him a big name. So Sigurd appears before Kalu, and he has a bit of a he's looking for help from Sigurd. He pulls out the sword Graham that's been kind of talked about before. The very first thing we see in this series is Graham plunged in the back of Thor's chest. We kind of he's going to go through and talking about he's got a proposition. He's kind of looking for some help from Kalu, and we cut back to Loki's apartment where Verity looks like came back to hang out with Loki. And all the while, we kind of see Sigurd sneaking around Loki's apartment, decked out in smart fabric athletic wear, glasses that apparently have some kind of technology tied to it, and also very specifically some aim tech that's designed to give him, stealth capabilities. So I don't know where he got all this, but he's got it. So he's sneaking around Loki's apartment. All the while, Verity notices Sigurd invisible, and there's a bit of a skirmish between the two of them. Well, before we get into that, the All Mothers appear before Loki
in a video game.
In a video game, Galaga, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, right, that is Galaga.
Yeah,
that guy was playing Galaga. He thought we wouldn't notice, but we did.
Yeah, yeah, very, very specifically Galaga, who are now tasking him with tracking down Sigurd, and Sigurd just happened to walk right into Loki's apartment. So, going well so far. Loki and Sigurd kind of throw down in the apartment. They each have their respective swords. Loki's got a sword called, and I'm going to butcher this, the Lavitine, which when Loki speaks that, Sigurd knows that it means damaged twig, which is, kind of tells you what Loki's going with. So,
and he has this frown on his face.
Yeah. So, Loki, they're fighting. Verity's kind of staying out of the way. Sigurd kicks Loki out of the window, and Loki lands majestically on some clotheslines below, which is being held up by some, magic shoes, as he does. And the fight continues down, you know, the in between the buildings, and they both land into a dumpster. You see some fighting that seems to happen in the dumpster. You see,
Yes.
a stab
It's a
happens.
great page.
Yeah, and Sigurd walks out saying, "Man, I feel so heroic." Uh, then it cuts back to Sigurd back on the mountain talking to Kalu. Uh, you know, it looks like Sigurd is going to Kalu for some help with trying to get out of the cycle of reincarnation within Asgard, and apparently he's the guy to do it. So um, they kind of do a blood oath, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a conversation that happens about how they can go about doing this and how he can get out of this cycle so he can escape Asgardia so that he doesn't have to be tracked by them anymore. So Kalu cuts his hand and Sigurd cuts his, and that's basically signs the blood oath contract. And the very last panel of that page, we see a familiar face in the form of Mephisto.
Oh,
And if you know anything about Mephisto, he's not a guy that you want to cut a deal with.
he is
So
definitely not.
So all along was Mephisto. I'm sure Disney Plus fans are finally happy to see their Mephisto. um, Mephisto's kind of going on bragging about how he's kind of wrapped Sigurd in this contract, and as he's kind of gloating and talking about it, he looks back at the contract and notices a clause he didn't put in there, and he turns behind and he sees that Loki, in very Loki-esque fashion, has been altering the contract behind their backs to read basically Loki is going to creates a pact where he banishes Mephisto back to where he came, and he gets to take Sigurd with him, which is quite possibly one of the most Loki moments ever. If you could outsmart Mephisto,
yeah,
in one of his pacts, I mean, truly living up to the God of Mischief tag, And we kind of go back. We see, Sigurd gets taken to the All Mothers, and then we get cut to Loki back in, his apartment, and on his apartment is sitting Barry Willis, Lorelei, and Thor, all in casual clothing, as if they are, they've agreed to be his agents. And very important note, Thor is wearing an AHA t-shirt. So that concludes issue 4, and it leads into next. You don't want to bring a sword to a Loki fight.
Oh my gosh! So
another word tag.
This episode, I keep mixing up issue and episode. Yikes!
They're episodes. I mean, the Loki TV show, Loki comic. They're episodes.
For all intents and purposes, we're just reading 5 episodes of Loki, the TV show. There you go. There, you Disney Plus fans. I absolutely loved that Mephisto showed up in this comic. It is the most. It feels like the most. Like it's a surprise, but then I'm like, oh, it makes so much sense though, because Mephisto uses underhanded means to trick people. So does Loki. So Loki out tricks like the most diabolical trickster in like all of Marvel Comics. He's essentially the devil. He outthinks the devil. That is
something to be said about that, for sure. I mean, this comic does a really good job of showing why Loki is the God of Mischief, and that is, I don't think you can get more Loki than that, outsmarting basically the devil.
And then we end with this great shot of kind of that penultimate moment where Loki has his squad ready to go, and then we head into the final issue of this first arc of Loki, Agent of Asgard, issue 5. On the cover, we see kind of this team picture. Everybody has kind of a casino vibe, kind of a fancy, almost dinner party vibe, where like Thor's in a shirt and tie. Verity is dressed up like a casino table worker. Sigurd and Loki both have suits and ties on. Lorelai is in like an evening gown. Very cool cover. On the first few pages, we see that Loki and Lorelai are hanging from the wing of a plane, and then there is an awesome Twilight Zone reference here, where you just see something's on the wing, and it's just Loki waving. It's just, I love the amount of between Lee Garbett's art and Al Ewing's writing. I love the amount of charm that they put into this. Loki is like this. He's this charming, like almost James Bond kind of secret agent. I just really love how Loki is written in these issues. So this is the beginning of the heist that Loki speaks about earlier on in this arc, and they go through the gradual progression of the things they need to do in order to get into the deepest dungeons of Asgardia. So, like Dan referenced at the beginning of this issue, we see Asgardia floating above Oklahoma, and the first thing they have to bypass is Heimdall, the all-seeing watchman of Asgardia. So, the way that they get past Heimdall is Thor is sent into space to fight these kind of just generic robot villains. They're called the Technarchy, the Technoarchy. I don't really know how to pronounce that one word.
That's how I pronounce it. So
okay, good. Well, at least we're on the same page. So then we see that Thor and Loki had to talk about this ahead of time. Loki enacts this as the favor that Thor agreed to earlier on in this arc. So as Thor fights these robots, Heimdall's attention is diverted from Loki and Lorelai sneaking into Asgard. So we see Lorelai use this really cool device. It's called the Charm of Liquid Solids, and it's a quantum device used by the dwarves of Nidavellir. What happens is they throw this orb through these walls, and Loki and Lorelai are able to just sink through the walls like nothing is going on, and the walls return and the floors return to what they previously were. So Loki has a great line in here where they drop into the bottom dungeons of Asgardia, and he's so scared that Loki says, "5 stars, I would soil myself again." Such a great line. We see then the next obstacle that Lorelai and Loki have to get past is the very subtly named the room full of incredibly deadly traps. Yep. And you find out that the traps that they see are not actual traps. They're meant more as scare tactics, and that's where Verity Willis comes in. Verity is able to see through these illusions and these lies in order to get the squad through the room of insanely deadly traps. We then come up to obstacle number 3, and a gate made of uru that is impregnable. Now, this is where the issue, I was really wondering how they were going to get past this gate. And I love when comics write themselves into a corner. I love when the characters are forced to be creative. And Lorelai even says, well, like, okay, shapeshifter, why don't you just turn into a fly and fly through the keyhole? And he's like, no, that's not how we're going to do it. We're going to go about this a different way. And
he's above being a fly, it seems.
Yeah, he's Loki. I'm above being such a meaningless little creature. We find out that Sigurd was Loki's man on the inside. Sigurd appears behind the impregnable Uru door and he lets them in. We then get a cut scene back to their fight in the dumpster, which is so good. And they make this deal together. They make this deal, and Sigurd lets them into the deepest dungeons of Asgardia. But then things don't go so well for Loki because then Lorelai and Sigurd kind of like, hey, we've done our part, peace out. So they throw open this dimensional little door. Lorelai does, and they walk through it, and then Loki is by himself. And he restates to the audience, this is not a heist. This is my mission. This is my mission, not an all mother's mission. This is his own personal thing. He goes through these hallways where he's looking through these cells and he's trying to find the deepest, darkest cell. And he realizes that the most important cell wouldn't look like a cell at all. And he kind of magically becomes aware of this false door, and he opens he kind of does this cool thing where he opens up the wall brick by brick magically, and on the other side of the wall we see old Loki, the villain that has been kind of working behind the scenes this entire arc. Loki and him have a standoff, and young Loki stabs older Loki with the sword of truth. And this is where a lot of the complexities of this arc come to light. We find out that Loki, younger Loki, cannot use the sword against older Loki because older Loki was the one that made this sword for this occasion in the first place. And it's not going to work the way younger Loki wanted it to. We find out that the All Mothers are aware of what old Loki is doing, and they've been almost setting up younger Loki from the start. The line that really gets me in this issue is when old Loki says, "Never mind, little Loki. I'll make sure that the true Asgard comes into being, for I am its agent." We've been under the impression all along that young Loki was the one that the All Mothers were putting all their hope and trust in, when really old Loki was the one that they were trusting in a little more, and maybe younger Loki was just a way to get to him. And later on, we see that old Loki is kind of haunting younger Loki, and then we get the last little panel of the issue and the arc. Next, Original Sin. So issue 5, I will say this, issue 5 does not end like a normal comic book arc. But I want to know, Dan, what were some of your favorite spots of this last issue, and what were some of your final closing thoughts about our first book review, Loki, Agent of Asgard?
So I loved how we both kind of talked about this. The issue 3 seemed so out of place, and
Yeah.
but it had, this issue made that issue 3 make so much more sense, because it was kind of unclear as they were kind of going through it, what was the point of this. And it was the backstory of the sword, the Graham, which was that same sword that we mentioned before.
Yeah.
And that tie, that little loop knot, kind of tying it back to that issue 3 was just so satisfying, because I now have another reason to like that issue besides the bazooka.
Exactly.
It gave a nice completed the circle for us. So that was really satisfying. And again, I'm a big fan of like old Loki, and seeing old Loki kind of outsmart this younger Loki that we're dealing with now, that we're at the head of it. He's he probably does not have the last laugh. I'm sure we'll see.
Yeah.
But it just kind of it shows us that Loki is maybe best when he's actually kind of working for himself, and when he gets to be dastardly and not heroic.
Yeah. I think my main takeaway from this first 5 issues of this series was that Loki is heroic in certain ways, um, but he will always do it in unheroic ways.
Mhm.
He will always be a trickster. He will, I mean, he out tricks the devil in these 5 issues. He out tricks the Avengers. Old Loki tricks a whole bunch of people in issue 3. That trickery and mischief is always at the center, always at the center. And even in the way that the publishers did the summaries for these issues, they even say, like, hey, so this is going to happen in the issue, and by the way, we're lying to you right now. Like,
Yeah.
so even the way that the book is written is even, it embodies the character of Loki. I think that with the TV show out right now, this would be a good read for people to go out and get, whether it's in paperback form or on Marvel Unlimited, because it really expounds on Loki as an individual, as what his means of value and virtue are, what he finds important, but also how he operates uh, as an agent who is really looking out for himself. I think we've seen that in the Disney Plus show pretty prominently. That at the end of the day, Loki's going to look out for himself.
Yeah, and this whole series, you can tell where the Disney Plus show kind of pulls from. You know, the first issue, I'm hearing Tom Hiddleston in the show that we're watching,
Yes.
in this character that we're reading, and also he is an agent of Asgard in this. He is an agent of the Timekeepers in this. The show we're
Yeah.
watching.
Yeah.
The show says that it doesn't really pull from any specific comic storylines.
Yeah.
But if I had to kind of point a finger to one that's close, it would be this one from what I've read.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
there's so many inspirations here, and this is really, if somebody wants to read comic Loki and is just really has had exposure to the MCU, I would recommend this because you get a little bit of what Loki was, and you get a little bit of what Loki is now, and it's no secret that the current 616 Loki is heavily inspired by the MCU Loki. It's kind of been
Absolutely.
rewritten to be this younger, again, One Direction-y Loki, to kind of appeal to the masses. But I do love that they included the old Loki that older comic fans might know and love. And this is probably, I'm glad that we read this one,
Yeah.
because this kind of encapsulates the character, in the best way, and how he would do in a solo story.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. That does it for our first book club, everybody. I hope you enjoyed digging into Loki, Agent of Asgard, with us. This was issues 1 through 5 of that series. Who knows? Maybe if you guys really enjoy this episode, we will come back and do more Agent of Asgard in the future. Regardless of that, I really thank you for listening to this episode of the book club. Okay, everybody, it is time to break down episode 3 of Loki, Lamentus. And I brought in another guest of my rotating, revolving door of guest hosts for this part of the show. I brought Liam Speaker on to talk this episode of Loki. Liam, how's it going today, man?
It's going well. Thank you for
Excited to
having
talk
me.
Loki?
Yes, I am. I just finished watching it for the third time.
So, wow. So
yeah.
you've definitely done your research. Fantastic.
Fresh in the brain.
So let's jump into it. What were some of your impressions of this episode? What jumped out to you? Let's start with, what are some of the good things that jumped out to you in this episode?
Some of the good things. Yeah. Well, first off, I liked the change of pace from the first 2 episodes. The first 2 episodes have kind of been relying heavily on the TVA setting, and I liked kind of getting out of that place, and getting
Okay.
onto a really well designed Lamentis One, like a soon to be abandoned mining colony on the outskirts of, what did they say, Xandar, or isn't that right?
I don't know. I actually don't remember if they referred to specifically any other planets. I know that Lamentis does not really show up prominently anywhere else. It's kind of just a planet that exists in this episode so that they can destroy it.
Gotcha. All right then. Yeah, but I liked I liked how it looked, very purpley and kind of reminiscent to Titan when Thanos was crashing the moon into that.
Right?
I liked the similarities there. And then I liked the costume design. Everyone looked very like it looked like this civilization had been around for a while, and it was close to the brink of destruction. With it being an apocalypse and all. Cool detail.
So with kind of the we can just jump into this too. With Lamentis being around for this episode alone, we assume maybe it will be alluded to at the beginning of the next episode, given how this episode ends. The whole arc of this episode leads up to this giant chase to get aboard the Ark to get off this planet. We start off with some stuff at the TVA. Sylvie does some really cool fight scene stuff. She finds out that, hey, her magic doesn't work in the TVA, but she and Loki find a way out. They run into Renslayer, and they drop onto Lamentis, and then that begins their chase to get on board the Ark. And at the end of this episode, we get the biggest fight scene we've gotten so far of them fighting through the crowd to get to the Ark. What did you think of that big climactic fight scene at the end with Sylvie and Loki getting through the crowd?
I really liked it. It was shot really well. It looked like it was all one take.
It was, yep.
Yeah. And it's real. I liked it a lot. I don't really have much more to say, other than I appreciated how kind of different it was from the other fight scenes we've seen, and more that it was just a one take thing. I'm a sucker for that kind of thing, and that cinema. Yeah,
that one camera view of an entire fight scene, and
exactly.
You see them rotate the camera around. Oh, it's almost like a first person action game where you're seeing their perspective, but there's so much more going on around them, and they definitely made you feel frantic as they're getting to the point at the end. And then I just, hey, if you haven't seen episode 3 of Loki, man, you need to pause it right here. When the Ark blows up at the end and they don't get there, what was going through your mind as the thing they're trying to get to the entire episode just blows up in front of them and kind of leaves us, with our hands, holding our hands like, okay, what happens now? What was that scene like on your 3 viewings of the episode?
Well, I mean, the first time I don't know if, I guess I just went into it with a different take. I was like, well, yeah, no one survives this. So when is that going to happen? Where's the big final thing that makes it so that nobody survives? And when seeing the Ark blow up, I was like, gotcha. I wasn't really like holding my breath the whole time for them.
Okay.
I was more of a, where is this going to go wrong? Where is this going to go wrong? Because
you were much more hopeful than I was.
Yeah.
You were much more logical than I was. I was more hopeful than you were. I was like, oh, they'll reverse it and they'll get to change it. And you're just like, no, man, this thing is going to blow up.
No way. No way.
What were some of the moments of the episode that maybe not bad moments, but just like moments that you found confusing and maybe you need them to elaborate more on in the future?
Well, I mean, there's not many, definitely. I mean, this show does a very good job explaining, I think, what it is. And without being like too explanatory, so that there's still a little bit of like the mischievousness behind the scene, like not just the mischievousness of Loki, but mischievousness of the director and um, the crew putting it together.
Yeah.
I honestly I would have liked it to be a little bit longer. When I saw like it was only 38 minutes, and that
Yeah.
of course with a Marvel show that's subtracting the 10 minutes for the credits, and I was like,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
wow, it's. But I mean, I guess it is the middle of the episode, or it is the middle of the series, and a little, I guess not side adventure, but you know what I'm saying.
It did feel a little side quest kind of. It gave me a side quest kind of vibe
Yeah.
because this really had nothing to do with the TVA.
Mm-mm.
The whole idea was to get back, to charge the device that gets them, the capability of moving off of Lamentus. I mean, really, the beginning of the episode when they're in the TVA and Sylvie's looking for the timekeepers, that feels like the main quest, and then they're jumped into this side quest. It's almost like Sylvie trying to get to the timekeepers was like her own personal divine timeline, and Loki pulls her into this branch of a side adventure for the episode.
Yeah.
When she's really annoyed. She's like, I just need to get back to the timekeepers. Like, you are really screwing up my plan right here.
Yeah.
The one scene we really haven't referred to yet that I would love to dig into is that scene on the train where both Sylvie and Loki have this very in-depth conversation about the depth of the meaning of love, and Loki has some great lines in there.
Yeah.
But we learn a lot about Loki and Sylvie in that conversation on the train, and I want to just ask you, like, what were some of your takeaways from those calmer one-on-one moments that we got to see?
Yeah, those are like conversations like that are my favorite parts of shows, and where you really get to see just the bare bones of the character behind like any kind of mask. And I liked how it started off talking about their moms,
Yeah.
um, or I guess Loki talking about Frigga, and I mean he literally just watched her die,
Yeah.
and then Sylvie didn't like she just said that her mom is just blips of memory,
Yeah.
which I thought was interesting. I feel like we'll probably get some more on that later, but I really liked that scene. And then obviously Loki gets drunk and sings that Asgardian hymn, which I thought, or not hymn, but song, I guess,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
thought was cool. And there's the reference in there to "Love is like a dagger," which I believe is from Macbeth. Correct? That's a Macbeth reference.
If anyone would know, I think it would be you, man.
To the disappearing dagger. And then obviously Sylvie just kind of dismisses it because it's a bad metaphor.
It's a bad metaphor. Well, and then there's that reference to when after Sylvie takes a little bit of a nap, she wakes up to Loki having like this raucous party, and then he
Yeah.
does the thing from Thor 1, and
Another.
he downs the drink and just another. Oh, that was so great. It was a great small callback that just probably made Thor fans really, really happy.
I love that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Small little callbacks that ties like 10-year periods of the MCU together.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So going forward, we have 3 episodes left. We are at the halfway point, and I just want to know, Liam, what are some of your expectations and hopes for the last half of this awesome TV show?
Well, personally, I want Mobius to be Loki, a Loki variant. I want it so
Okay,
badly. I want
we
him to
have
be the
talked about
original
this.
Loki.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about this in person, but with that reveal during this episode that all TVA agents are variants, that just gets me one step closer and makes me believe that Mobius maybe, and that's the big twist at the end of the series, is maybe Mobius is like the original Loki from the original like crazy timeline that they talked about. And then I'm excited for them to reveal hopefully that the TVA is the ultimate bad guy, or maybe it's all a farce and it's just like Miss Minutes controlling everybody. That is what
Okay.
I'm excited for coming up.
It's just speaking of Miss Minutes, like we really haven't seen much of her in the show. Just a few moments here and there where she explains some things to us. But I saw this. I saw this on online the other day that Tara Strong, the actress who voices Miss Minutes,
Yes.
has said there is more explanations of Miss Minutes coming, and I was like, oh, that sounds awesome. I didn't. It's one of those things where I didn't even know I wanted it until the actress playing her was like, yeah, you get more of her. I'm like, oh, well, now I want that. Now I want that a lot.
Yeah.
So you know what? I agree with you on all fronts. I'm gonna keep rolling with my Kang the Conqueror is one of the timekeepers theory.
Oh,
and,
yeah, definitely. I mean,
and
yeah. Have you seen those? I've seen images of, I forget the name of the actor that's been confirmed to play.
Jonathan Majors is the actor who's playing.
And if you look at his face next to the center timekeeper, they're very similar faces. Like the structure of their two eyes, like, are very similar. So that could be an interesting twist in there.
I would go nuts. And I said that during WandaVision when the whole theory of Mephisto being the one that was behind the hex was happening, and then I got disappointed there. But no, this time I'm right. I know it. I feel it in my bones. It's got to be Kang the Conqueror at the end.
It's definitely coming.
It absolutely has to be. So Liam, thank you for sitting and breaking down episode 3 of Loki Lamentus with me. We will catch you down the road, and hopefully we get 3 more banger episodes of Loki to talk about at the end.
Another.
See you, man.
Yeah.
That is all for the episode today, everybody. I hope you enjoyed our look back at Loki, Agent of Asgard, with Dan the Articulator, and our look at the 3rd episode of the Loki television show with Liam. Both of those guys were just a treat to talk to, and specifically talk Loki with. I hope you enjoyed those conversations. Again, just want to remind you, a way to help the podcast is going to iTunes, rating us 5 stars, giving us a review, and then hitting that subscribe button so you don't miss anything that we put out on our feed from Across the Bifrost. You can go follow us on Instagram at Across the Bifrost, and go follow us on Twitter at Across Bifrost. While you're there, talk with us about Loki. What do you love about the show? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think Kang the Conqueror is one of the timekeepers, just like I do? Maybe you do. Tell me about that. We would love to hear from you. As always, everybody, it is my honor and privilege to do this show for you. I continue to just learn more about the characters that I love, and I hope you are able to learn something as well. We look forward to the next time that you jump aboard the Rainbow Bridge with us. Have a great rest of your day, and remember, stay worthy, friends.